There's moments that stand out in time that you don't forget. And I can remember years ago, it's probably been 20 years, my dad and I went to a Promise Keeper conference. And when we were there, it was in the Astrodome. I think there was, 40,000 men there. And they were singing Holy, Holy, Holy a cappella. And I remember that's my favorite time that I've ever sang Holy, Holy, Holy was right there. And so, Sister Leah, I've sang I Stand Amazed in the Presence probably 5,000 times in my life. But that this morning was my very favorite. So thank you for leading us into a great time of worship. One day I'd been at the church all day long. Contrary to popular belief, preachers work more than just Sundays and Wednesdays. So I'd been up here all day long, lots of meetings, lots of things going on. I was ready to go home. I go and I tell Miss Debbie, I've had enough for today. I can't stand no more. I'm going to the house. So I walk out to my car, and it's sitting kind of funny, funnier than usual. I'm looking at it. So I walk around. Sure enough, my tire's on the ground, and there's nothing more exciting than being ready to go home and having a flat tire. I mean, these are good times we're talking about. So I said, that's all right. I got peace in the valley, no problem. The Lord gave me hands, and He gave me feet, and I got the stuff, so take out the jack, get it up off the ground, put the spare on there. It only takes like 4 hours to get home because you can drive like 10 miles an hour on a 6-foot wheel that they put in the back of your car. And when I drive up to the house, there's something different about the driveway. There's a black mark going all the way down our driveway like somebody had peeled out of our driveway. So I follow it up real slow, and it leads right under our carport. And at that moment, this panic insets in my life, and I go, we have been robbed. You have got to be kidding me. First I get a flat tire, now I come home, and we have been robbed at our house. Move to Lavernia, they said. It's a safe family community. Nobody ever gets robbed around here. You'll be just fine. You don't even have to lock your doors. Well, I guess we're the exception to that rule, so I'm going through in my mind, I wonder what they stole. What's going to be gone? We can replace this, replace that. If they took my wife's dogs, this is not going to be good. And I start thinking, okay, after I go inside and I call the police, I'm calling the security company. We are getting cameras put everywhere. I'm getting on Craigslist, and I'm buying 2 Rottweilers, 2 Doberman Pinschers, and 2 Pit Bulls. And I'm going to train them to kill anything that walks inside. Then I'm going to rent me a backhoe, and I'm digging a moat all the way around my house. 8 foot wide, 10 foot deep, and I'm filling that dude with electric eels and water moccasins. Let's see them rob me again. So I might as well go inside and assess the damage. So I go in, and the back room looks okay, and the kitchen looks okay, and the bedrooms look fine. I don't see anything missing or anything damaged. So I go back outside, and I'm thinking, I'm looking, going, it is obvious that somebody pulled in this driveway, and they got out of here in a hurry. I wonder if it was somebody coming maybe to scope the place out. They're doing a little bit of recon to see who's home, when they're home, maybe what we have, then come back later to clean us out. Maybe somebody came here and installed cameras all over my house, and they're going to be watching us like it's some kind of reality TV show, Duck Dynasty meets Full House. That's what would be in our home. Maybe they drove up and they were about to start loading our things up, and one of my neighbors saw them, and they chased them off with a shotgun. I love my neighbors. And then I realized that, right where that black mark begins is right where I'm parked at. And then that pivot that goes out looks just like how I leave in the mornings. And so what had happened was my tire was already flat, I guess, when I left that morning. And so when I backed out of the driveway and drove out, I left me a nice black tire mark all the way up the driveway. So for an hour of my life, I was worried, I was mad, I was upset. I was brewing and stewing about how to catch and convict these scallywags who done did robbed my house. And the whole time it was me that caused that black tire mark with my flat tire. And I never even knew. So you see, I had a piece of the truth. There is a black tire mark in my driveway. But that's all that I had. Just a little piece. I didn't really know how it got there. I didn't know why it was there. I didn't know what it was for. I just had a piece of the truth. And that's what Jesus has been addressing as he's going through this Sermon on the Mount. He begins with the Beatitudes, right? Blessed are those who are poor in spirit, which means those who realize we are spiritually bankrupt without Jesus. Blessed are those who mourn for the pain that sin causes in our life. Blessed are those who are peacemakers and who are merciful. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are those who are insulted and persecuted for Jesus' sake. And then he goes into this section where he's trying to illustrate to them that they've only been seeing a piece of the truth. Because see, the Pharisees are all about the outside. So the teachers of the law and the experts of the law, the ones that they would look to show and to teach and to share with them what was right, what was wrong, what was good, and what was bad, were really emphasizing the outside. So they would say, listen, as long as you wear the right clothes, as long as you go to the right church service, as long as you say the right prayers, as long as you give the right offerings, only the things that the world can see, that's all that really matters. That's what's important. And then Jesus comes and says, and that's a piece of the truth. Just a piece, but it's not the whole truth. What exactly do you mean? Well, let me give you some examples. He says, you have heard that you should not murder. We know that one full well. Don't kill people. Got it. But I say that if you hate somebody in your heart, and if you despise them and want bad things to happen to them, and you speak insults to them, calling them an empty-headed numbskull, then you are a murderer in your heart. So see, you had a piece of the truth. You shouldn't kill somebody physically. You got that part. But really what that law means, not changing it. This is what it has meant this whole time. You shouldn't hate somebody in your heart either, because it's not just what's on the outside. God is very concerned with what's on the inside. You have heard you should not commit adultery. We know about that. Do not be unfaithful to your spouse. No problem. And that's a piece of the truth on the outside. But I say that if you lust after a woman in your heart and you have these desires for them, that you have already committed adultery. So it's not just what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside. So, okay, if I don't want to be hating people on the inside, I don't want to be a murderer, and I don't want to commit adultery, what do I do about these things? And he says, well, first of all, if you have hatred or you're insulting someone, then there's a problem between you. You go and reconcile. You leave your gift at the altar. You stop whatever you're doing. You go and you find them, and you make things right the best that you can. If there's something in your life that is causing you to lust or to be an adulterer, then if your eye causes you to sin, you throw it away. If your hand causes you to sin, you cut it off and get rid of it. Not promoting self-mutilation, but saying, don't stop at anything to make sure that you are living rightly before the Lord. So see, you have a piece of the truth, but I want you to see the whole truth. And so today he continues talking about three more subjects: divorce, oaths, and retaliation. Oh my. If you have your Bibles, turn to Matthew chapter number 5. We're going to look at verses 31 through 42 today. See what Jesus has to say about the whole truth when it comes to divorce, oaths, and retaliation. Matthew chapter 5, we'll start in verse 31. First we see the do's and the don'ts. So I would assume that within every household in the church, you have do's and don'ts in your house. So, you tell your kids in the morning, do brush your teeth, don't forget your lunch. Do and don't. Do take out the trash, don't drink out of the milk carton. Do your homework, don't take a ghost pepper challenge. That's a bad idea. Do's and don'ts. And in life, you have do's and don'ts, okay? These are things that I want to do, and these are things that I do not want to do. And it's always interesting to see that some of the things that are on y'all's list in your life, of things that you want to do in your life, just so happen to be on my don't list. I do not want to do these things. And so I caught a video this week that I'm going to show you. And so you can go ahead and start playing it. And this man on his to-do list just so happens to have something that is on my to-don't list. So this fella here, his name is Rodrigo Coxa. And he set a Guinness World Record for riding the biggest wave in the world. And so this wave was 80 feet tall. And I don't know if you understand the severity of this situation, but that guy is at the bottom of that wave basically on a floating ironing board with fins. And this is something that he chose to do. He was not forced by gunpoint. He wanted to do this. He says, this is on my to-do list, absolutely on my to-don't list. He received the Big Wave Award, which I also refer to as the Have You Lost Your Mind Award. So Jesus is teaching people the difference between what they think they know to be the whole truth and what actually is the whole truth. So he starts with some to-dos and some to-don'ts. I like this because this is simple. We can understand this. Verse 31. It was also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. It was also said, so you know, with murder and with adultery, you have heard. It was also said, this is what you believe, this is what you have been taught, this is what you consider to be absolute, undeniable, unchangeable truth. Whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. So in this day and time, divorce was very popular, and it was very, very widespread. So he says, this is what you've heard. Let's remind ourselves of exactly what the law that you follow writes and states. Deuteronomy 24. When a man takes a wife and marries her, if then she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found some indecency in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house, and she departs out of his house, and if she goes and becomes another man's wife, and the latter man hates her and writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house, or if the latter man dies, who took her to be his wife, then her former husband, who sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife, after she had been defiled, for there is abomination before the Lord, and you shall not bring sin upon the land that the Lord your God is giving for you an inheritance. So, if a man takes a woman to be his wife, and then he finds no favor in her eyes, or he discovers some indecency about her, what exactly does that mean? We don't really know. Jesus doesn't elaborate on this. It can mean a lot of things. But from everything that I can read and everything that I have studied, what it basically means is the man can find any reason he wants to divorce his wife, and it's okay this day and time. So, comes home from work, and he is a shepherd. He's been working with sheep all day long, and he don't want anything for dinner except beef, tips, and rice. This is what I want. I don't want no lamb shanks. I don't want no lamb kebabs. I don't want nothing lamb. I've been with them dumb sheep all day long. I want beef, woman. Beef tips and rice. And he comes home. She goes, babe, I made lamb stew for you. Divorce. The only thing that I really wanted was to come home and to see my wife wearing that blue scarf. She looked so beautiful in that blue scarf. It brings out her eyes. And I walked in, and she had on the tan scarf. Divorce. There we were watching the football game of the Jerusalem Javelins versus the Babylon Bees. And I just knew she was a Jerusalem fan. All of a sudden, she started cheering for the Babylon Bees. Divorce. Was it really that simple and that easy? Yes. There was only these two stipulations, okay? Number one, you had to issue this decree of divorce, and you couldn't marry her again. So here's the way that worked. If I want to divorce you for any reason at all, you done made me mad, you didn't laugh at my joke, I don't like the way you looked at me, you didn't cook beef tips and rice, I can sign this certificate of divorce, and you're gone, woman. Get on out of my house. But to have this certificate of divorce, which enables her to be married again, which would be how she would support herself, start another family, you got to have a scribe. So scribes aren't just waiting on the corner. So that's going to take a little bit of time. Might take you an hour, might take you a day, but that at least gives you a little bit of a cool down period. Okay, so you can have a scribe to issue the certificate. Second thing is you can't marry her again. So that means if I marry you, you didn't cook beef tips and rice, I give you the DIVORCE, and then next week I realize, but you know what? That lamb stew was pretty good. So I think I changed my mind. You can come on back home. Too late. Once you've divorced her and she's gone, you cannot marry her again. So this is what the people understand, okay? This is what Deuteronomy says very clearly. We just read it. Whoever wants to divorce his wife, for whatever reason, good or bad, is totally fine, as long as he gives her a certificate of divorce. And then Jesus comes in and says, well, God expects so much more than just this certificate. Verse 32. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. But I say the words of Jesus in full effect, command truth with the authority of God the Father. But I say everyone who divorces his wife, except on the grounds of sexual immorality, or whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Goodness gracious. Adultery, divorce, immorality. Oh my. Let's unpack this a little bit. Here was the understanding. You have heard you can divorce your wife for any reason. She wakes up in a bad mood, you don't like it. She burned the manna at breakfast. She ate the last cupcake in the pantry. Whatever it is, you can divorce her as long as you give her a certificate of divorce, because that is all that's required, because marriage is nothing more than a signed piece of paper. And Jesus says, oh, that's what you've come to believe, but marriage is so much more than that. Matthew 19. And the Pharisees, they came up to him, and they tested him by asking, so is it lawful to divorce one's wife for any cause? He answered, have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female? And said, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother, and shall hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man separate. You may kiss your bride. They said to him, why then did Moses command one to give a certificate of divorce and then send her away? He said, because the hardness of your hearts, it allowed Moses for you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning, it was not so. That was not the plan. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another commits adultery. No, it's not okay to divorce your wife for any reason that you see fit to. He goes, but there is one reason, sexual immorality. And if you divorce for that reason, then the great work that God did is undone. So God says, when a man and wife come together, that he establishes a union between them, and they are no longer two, but they are one. So God binds them together as one flesh. And when the husband wakes up and decides that because his wife served him Cheerios instead of Lucky Charms, he wants to divorce her, he is not released from that union that God has created. He goes, but when there's sexual immorality involved, God breaks that bond, and then remarriage is allowed. So here is some do's and some don'ts that I take away from this passage. Number one, do take marriage very seriously as an ordained union by God Almighty, not just a simple piece of paper that is signed. Do make sure that you are marrying the right person before you say, I do. Do know that sexual immorality makes divorce permissible, but that doesn't mean that it's mandatory. Do not ever see marriage as a temporary union until something better comes along or until you're just not happy anymore. Do not be misled that marriage is easy, and when you find the one, that y'all are always going to stay on the same page. But the day that the page changes and there's a little bit of conflict or turmoil, just throw in the towel. Do not believe that the world's view on marriage, that it's not important, is the same thing that God believes. Because to him, marriage is absolutely sacred. So where does that leave us? If you are in this place today and you are single, wait for God to show you the right person that you're supposed to spend the rest of your life with. He will illuminate that person, I pray for you. He will show you without a shadow of a doubt who you are with is not the right one or who is supposed to be the right one. And when you find them, love them unconditionally and never give up on that relationship. If you are married, how many people in here have been married for... How many people are married? Raise your hand. How many have been married for 5 years? How many have been married for 10 years? How about 15 years? 20 years? 25? 772 years. Everybody. So all of you can testify, since the day that you got married, it has been nothing but wedded bliss. And marriage is the easiest thing in the world. Anybody get that testimony? If you are, get thee behind me, Satan. You lie in the church. I love my wife more than anything in this world. Marriage is tough sometimes, though. It's not easy. So if you are married, there's going to be some hard days. Don't quit. Keep trying. Don't stop. It's a relationship, and it is a work in progress. If you're in this place today and you've been divorced, I am sure that was one of the hardest times in your life that you have ever walked through. And I've sat on the side of the table where somebody has told me that that divorce was the greatest thing that has ever happened to them in their life. And I've sat on the side of the table where they say, listen, that was the most devastating thing that I've ever walked through in my life. But on either side of the table, it is still a tragic life event. And so you need to know today that God knows what happened, and God knows the circumstance, the situation, and He loves you. And my prayer is that you could take what you learned from that broken relationship and maybe help somebody else who's walking through that same trial. That the Lord would help you to use great wisdom when investing in future relationships, and most of all, that you be shown the truth that we will always find some type of flaw in every relationship in this life, and the only one that we can ever count on to never let us down is our relationship with Jesus. Period. Divorce is such a touchy subject, and it makes people feel very uncomfortable even to say the words out loud sometimes. And I hope that nobody came in today going, oh my Lord, the preacher's going to tell us if we've been divorced, we're not going to heaven. No way. And instead, what the Lord told me to tell you today is these verses right here, Jesus is much more concerned about your present and your future than I believe He is with your past and what has happened. The sanctity of marriage is called to be held with great preciousness. It's not just a simple piece of paper. It's not just a, hey, let's sign off today and sign off tomorrow. It's a lifelong union that we are called to crave, desire, fight for, and protect with all that we are. Number 2, that's it. I'm not talking about divorce, no more today. The yeses and the nos. Verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. So Jesus is establishing a pattern here, okay? So you have heard this about murder. Let me tell you what it's really all about. You have heard this about adultery. This is what it's all about. You have heard this about divorce and this certificate. Let me tell you what it's all about. You have heard this from the days of old, the teachings that you grew up with, if you have heard over and over and over. Don't swear falsely. So don't swear on the name of the Lord, and then don't do what you say, because then you are going to be held accountable. And to swear means to make an oath, a promise, or a vow. These would be some of the verses they were familiar with. Leviticus 19. You shall not swear by my name falsely, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Deuteronomy 23. If you make a vow to the Lord your God, you shall not delay fulfilling it, for the Lord your God will surely require it of you, and you will be guilty of sin. So you have heard, you should not swear upon the name of the Lord. And most of the time that you would see this situation would be when a person wants to convince you of something, but you're not believing what they have to say. So it would look like this. Listen, I'm going to sell you this bag of flour, and I promise there are 10 pounds of purified flour in this bag. Yeah, I don't know if I really believe you, but I swear on the name of the Lord. Okay, well, if you're willing to do that, then I believe you. I did not take your goat. I know that I was there, and I know that now it's not there, and I know there's a goat that looks just like yours in my pen and in my field, but I did not take it. I don't believe you. Well, I swear in the name of the Lord that I did not steal your goat. Okay, well, if you're willing to do that, then I guess you're being really serious, and I'm going to have to take what you say. Verse 34. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, or the throne of God, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. So if they didn't want to swear on the name of the Lord, because that was serious business, they would swear on something else. I swear by the heavens, and I swear by the earth. I swear by Jerusalem. I swear by the hairs on my head and my chinny chin chin that I did not do this, or that you can trust what I have to say. And most of the time when they use those words, it was to be deceptive. They were trying to convince somebody of something that was not true. So you think about a child who gets caught and they're stealing candy from the store, and the owner grabs them and they calls their parents and he sticks them in the car with mom and dad, and the child says, listen, I have learned my lesson. Please do not spank me. Or no, you can't do that no more. Do not put me in timeout. Do not take away my iPhone X. Please do not limit my electronics. Please don't do any of those things because I swear I have learned my lesson. I promise I will never, ever do that again. You got that right. You're never going to do that again. But I'll swear I will say anything I need to. And so Jesus is not forbidding taking an oath. Instead, he is condemning the flippant, profane, or careless use of oaths in everyday speech. Okay, well, listen. The only way I know how to convince somebody that I'm being absolutely serious and let them know that they should believe me is to swear. Because when I swear, and I mean a bad word, but when I make this oath and I make this promise, then they'll believe me. If I can't do that, how am I supposed to make sure people know that what I'm saying is true? Verse 37. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. Jesus says, let me just give you this idea to ponder. You've spent your life trying to convince people that what you say is true. And the only way you have found to do that is to be able to swear by the name of the Lord or be able to swear on heaven or Jerusalem or earth. How about this? Okay, just think about this. Try this on for size. What if you lived a life of such great morality and conviction that whenever you said something, people believed you? What an amazing idea. What if you lived your life in such a way that nobody ever questioned the things that you said? You can think of an example right now in your life of somebody that you know, and I don't care what they say, you are not believing it. They have lied to you so many times, if the truth slapped them in the face, they wouldn't know what the truth was. So when they speak, I don't care what they swear by, I'm not believing anything that comes out of their mouth. But then you also know somebody that whatever they say to you, you believe them. They don't have to swear. They don't have to promise. They don't have to show proof because you know how they live and you know their character and you've been around them, and when they say something, they mean it. They're not making it up. So that first person you thought of that lies about everything and has to try to convince you that what they're saying is actually true because they've cried wolf so many times, don't be like that person. But the one who just says yes or no, and you believe them because they live rightly, they've never lied before, they're a good person, they walk with the Lord, their character speaks for itself. Be like that person. You shouldn't live your life in such a way where you have to swear and promise and make a vow for somebody to believe what you are saying. The Greek words there mean, when I say yes, yes. Okay, now listen, this is big here. When I say yes, yes, in the Greek, you know what that word means? When I say yes, yes, that means that my words actually mean yes. And when I say no, no, my words actually mean, wait for it, no. What a way to live! That when I say yes, it means yes, and when I say no, it means no. What a great idea! Shouldn't we know these things already? And yet the people are living by this false truth that the way to convince somebody of something is by swearing to them. Instead, Jesus says, how about you just live your life in such a way where people know that what you say is true? Now, preacher, this is not something I struggle with. I have told the truth since I was a little kid. I have never lied. I never led anybody astray. Praise the Lord for you. Keep living that way. That's what God wants from you. Be an example to others and set that before them and know that the Lord holds us accountable. Or for others, you can say, yeah, my reputation, not so great. I've told a few stories. Maybe I've made some stuff up. I have perfected the art of the swearing and the oath to convince people to really believe me this time. So what should I do? Well, if you want to make a change in your life, it starts now. It doesn't start tomorrow or next week or next month. Jesus says he'll forgive us of all of our sins. He's faithful and just. But that doesn't mean that the people are going to forget about how we've lived. So we reconcile with those that we have been dishonest with. We ask for forgiveness, and then we tell them that we're not going to live that way anymore. And then it's up to us to prove that we're no longer walking in the darkness, but instead we are walking in the light. And when they see the transformation is real, then they will start to believe what we have to say. The do's and the don'ts, the yeses and the no's. Number 3, how about the rights and the wrongs? One of my very favorite things about the first day of school, so some of y'all started this week, some started last week, is the first day of school pictures. So if you're online or social media, everybody puts a picture of their kids on the first day of school. And it's exciting. You see their new outfits. You see some that are smiling and some that are not so smiling. So apparently there's a right way and a wrong way to do a first day of school pic. So this is an example of a right way. This looks good, okay? Ooh, look at that outside the garage. Got my shoes, got my backpack. You talk about their favorite colors, their toys, their games, their TV shows. You write everything about their life. It's color coordinated. It looks good. This is good, okay? This is Pinterest mom material here. First day, first pics. This is what you aim for. Or even something a little simpler like this here. You still get a smile. You get a name. Where are they going? When I grow up, I want to be like mommy. Oh, that's great, okay? Right ways to do first day of school pics. Here's a way not to do the first day of school pic. That's bad. This is not what you want to remember in 10 years. Oh, I remember your first day of school. You were weeping and having a panic attack. It was great. That's bad. Or here's my personal favorite. First grade. Mom forgot to make a sign. That's it. Poor fella. I didn't have Pinterest, Mom. I had last minute, Mom. Give me a piece of paper. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. Jesus says there's a right way and a wrong way to handle retaliation. Matthew 5. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I've heard that before. That's not just pirate lingo. That's something I have heard. Exodus 21 is where it comes from. But if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. And the purpose of this law, it's known as the lex talionis, is not to give you free reign on revenge in your life. It is not for you to say, well, listen, my neighbor stole my trash can. I get to steal theirs. It's in the Bible. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It is not for you to set out on personal retaliation. It's supposed to be a warning and a purging of evil for you to say, listen, if you do something bad to somebody else, then that same badness can be extracted from you. So don't do those things. Be nice to other people and treat them well so that it's not an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. He's trying to say, listen, don't live that way. But you know this is eye for eye and tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, verse 39, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Don't resist. That means don't stand against, don't be opposed, don't withstand. Don't be the one who is evil. So if anybody slaps you on the cheek, offer to them the other cheek. Preacher, I was with you with all that murder and that adultery stuff. I got the other part, but I don't know about all this business. You slapped me in the cheek, I'm pulling out my weapon. I'm just telling you nothing. Do not resist. He's not speaking about self-defense here. He's not condemning that at all. This is more like a backhanded insulting, right? This is the guy that pulls off his white glove. Whoosh, whoosh. He slaps you with an insult. It is offensive, not physically fearful. Here's what old Charles Spurgeon says about this. Non-resistance and forbearance are to be the rule among Christians. They are to endure personal ill usage without coming to blows. This is getting worse. I don't like this at all. They are to be as the anvil when bad men are the hammers, and thus they are to overcome by patient forgiveness. The rule of the judgment seat is not for common life, but the rule of the cross and the all-enduring sufferer is for us all. Yet how many regard all this as fanatical, utopian, and even cowardly? The Lord, our King, would have us bear and forbear and conquer by mighty patience. Can we do it? How are we the servants of Christ if we have not his Spirit? If someone wants to get into a confrontation, he says, do not engage in their ignorance. Verse 40. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. So if somebody comes up and they want to take your robe, let them take it. And go ahead and give them your cloak too. If a military soldier comes up beside you and says, you're going to carry my stuff for the next mile, you carry their stuff for 2 miles, or maybe even 3 miles, or 4 miles. And if you see somebody who is in need, be gracious to them. Once again, Jesus is not saying, okay, listen, in this world, you're going to have 4 things that are going to happen to you, and that's it. Nothing else will ever happen. Only these 4 things. Somebody's going to want your tunic. Somebody's going to want your cloak. Somebody's going to ask you to carry something. You're going to see somebody in need. Besides that, that's all you got to worry about. If one of those 4 things happens, this is what you do. Besides that, you're on your own. And so he's going, here's more examples of something you might walk through in this life, and here's how you should respond if you want to be salt and if you want to be light. I've never personally had somebody come to me and demand my cloak. That'd be pretty cool, though, I think, if I wore like a robe all the time. I could be like a superhero. I've never had somebody that I could give my tunic to. And I don't think that Jesus is being literal here, because if you did give somebody your cloak and your tunic, you'd be left wearing like your undergarments, which means you'd be in your underwear. And so I don't think Jesus is saying, hey, listen, the way to follow me is to be in your underwear all day. He's giving a picture here. Somebody demands something from you, let them have it. And I tell you what, give them even more than they ask for. That's weird. Somebody demands something from me, I'm going to tell them to watch their mouth. I'm going to tell them to mind their manners. Or I'm going to say, how much money are you going to give me if I give you this? And she goes, that's exactly what the world would do. But guess what? You're not called to look like the world. You're called to look like Jesus. And Jesus is merciful. And blessed are those who are peacemakers and who want to help other people. And he goes, so when somebody comes to you and they say, hey, listen, you're going to carry this for me 1 mile, go ahead and carry it 2 miles for them, or maybe 3 or 4, because you want to go beyond what anybody would ever expect. And when somebody slaps you on the right cheek, you bust their teeth out. No, it doesn't say that. Somebody slaps you on the right cheek, just turn the other cheek to them. Who does that? Christians. That's what Christians do. He says we turn it away because we're not seeking to be violent. We're not seeking for conflict. Once again, he's not saying you can't defend yourself, but he's saying when somebody insults you, it's not an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. He says be light in a world of darkness and show grace and forgiveness and show understanding. When somebody who is undeserving demands your jacket, give it to them and give them your pants. Not at the same time, where you're walking around in your drawers. If a person makes you go the distance, go a little further. If somebody in need asks for help, help them. Don't give foolishly, but give freely by the leadership of the Spirit. Jesus says, this is what a life looks like that really shines and that makes a difference. So I wonder how we are doing in our lives, loving well and following Jesus. Here are some of the questions that can help us know. Am I following the do's and don'ts of marriage and divorce? Am I loving my spouse well when I want to and even when I don't want to? Am I allowing adultery or immorality or pornography or lustful thoughts or desires to ruin a union that God has formed into one flesh? Do I protect that relationship at all costs? Am I looking for ways to issue a decree of divorce, or am I looking for ways to strengthen my marriage? Am I living my life in such a way that others believe the words that come out of my mouth, or do I have to swear to everybody that what I say is true? When others think about my character and how I live and how I treat people and how I conduct myself, can I be trusted as a friend, or am I seen simply as a fool? Do I know the difference between right and wrong? It seems like a simple question. It should be black and white, but there's a lot of gray in the world that we live in. Do I seek retaliation? Do I look to fulfill an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, or do I trust that the Lord is my Redeemer? Am I the one that throws the first punch and speaks the fighting words and lunges for the attack? Or am I willing to be a suffering servant, refusing to retaliate, letting others say what they got to say and do what they need to do, and recognize that Jesus was mistreated in this world, and so I'm willing to be mistreated also? Do I go the extra mile, or do I stop as soon as I can? Is my goal in life to help other people, or is my goal to find people who can help me. Divorce, oaths, retaliation. They're all very hot topics that I think we all need to spend some time thinking about, because these are the words written in red.